March 20th, 1940. Dear Marg. Your letter arrived last week and I fully intended writing you Sunday but just couldn't get around to it. I went skiing in the afternoon and didn't return home until nearly 10 o'clock, and believe it or not, I went straight to bed. Monday, I left for Elk Lake in Guganda, in the Matachewan district. I returned home this morning. Was it ever great out there? I often think that these squatters and homesteaders, whom we often look down upon, are really better off than we are. At least they are happy as long as they get their 3 squares a day. One thing's certain, they appreciate everything they own and make as it represents hard work, and then they have so little in the way of household comforts so that any they may acquire is really appreciated. Then again, the country is so quiet, joyful, and really beautiful. It made me want to throw up the works and go to the bush, or is it just an early case of spring fever? There is plenty of election talk around here and pretty hot complaining. We have 5 men running, a Liberal, Conservative, CCF, Farmer Labor and Independent. And I think the Independent now might make the grade, although personally I think although he is a good man, he is wasted without parties backing. One thing I would like to see, and that is more young men running instead of a bunch of old fogies who still want to plow the land with oxen. However, the Alberta election will be interesting. Well, my dear, I suppose you are preparing for the Easter parade armed with spring finery. It's still winter here, although bright and sunny and considerably warmer. But I still want to go skiing Friday and Sunday. I am trying to listen to the Lakeshore Goodyear hockey game as well as write, and it's some job, although only a minute or so of the play remains with Lakeshore leading 4-3. Well, darling, I can't think of much more to say. I always think of lots to say after I have mailed the letter, but I guess that's a failing of nearly everyone. So, write soon like a good girl and tell me all about the spring styles and the Easter parade. As ever. Roger XXX. May 12, 1940. Dear Marg. It's over a week ago since I received your letter, dear, and would have written before, only I expected another trip to Toronto. I was to have left last Thursday and returned today. I was to buy spring steel for the lad I was with on my last trip down. However, at the last minute he had to go down himself, which left me out. I'm sorry to say, as we could have had a few evenings together. Believe you me, I think they are coming to us. What do you think? It certainly doesn't seem like spring today, dull with a cold wind, more like fall. The ice is off the lake now and the grass green, so that is a pretty good sign the summer is on the way. Makes a fellow want to go back to old Muskoka. After all, I think that's the only place I could ever settle down in. Of course, the North Country is fine, but the town's rotten. A chap I chum with left this morning for Sudbury to join the Air Force as an observer. He had no trouble joining, as he has had 3 years with a transport company at Sioux Lookout. 2 other lads left last week to join the Navy. However, there is no recruiting near here yet. I think old Adolf made his mistake in opening up another front. This leaves him open on 3 sides. I hear that Britain and France will now bomb civilian towns in retaliation for bombing Brussels. It's about time they stopped dropping funny papers to the enemy. When you hear of the war, it makes me think that Canada isn't such a bad place after all. Even if there is room for improvements. Len Bowyer, my first cousin, returned from a trip around the north and is really pleased with himself. He is Art's brother and has started a casket works in Cobalt and apparently is having some success. Well, Marg, so you are starting the night school again? Well, lots of luck, dear. I am still studying mineralogy, but see that I will have to brush up on my chemistry. Then I will have to spend a few more Sundays in the bush and gain a little more practical work. I am going to try and keep working all summer and try writing exams in the fall. I am gradually acquiring quite a mineral and rock collection. Received quite a compliment on my collection from an old engineer whom I brought over to the house Friday night. I showed him what I was doing and received some valuable information and help from him. I have an invitation to go and see his collection and borrow any of his books that may interest me. I have been trying to make a contact like this for some time. Well, darling, I can't think of any more news to give you at present and will try and answer other letters more promptly next time. So be a good little girl and watch those wooden nickels. As ever. Roger XXX. May 29, 1940. Dear Marg, your letter received yesterday, and as usual very pleased to hear how life is using you, pretty fair from all reports. I hope you enjoyed your trip on Sunday. It rained all day here, in fact it has rained since last Thursday, although the sun did shine today. I was asked to stand up for a young chap at his wedding last Friday. I wasn't very particular as it was rather a haywire wedding and it stopped me from going trout fishing. Although it rained all day, the 3 lads who did go fishing gave me 3 fish, adding insult to injury, don't you think? I am still with the car spring works. I was supposed to go on the road for them, but their plant is anything but complete and certainly not efficient enough to handle the business I was bringing in, so I am in the plant and find it kind of interesting the past week. We ran into difficulties in regulating the fuel and air pressure of the blast furnace in which we heat our steel to make car springs. I got a book on pressure and velocity of air and liquids. So, when it was raining Sunday, I decided to go over to the plant and do a little experimenting. When the boss came down about 11 o'clock, I had one burner going fine. The 2 of us worked until 2 o'clock and had it running perfect. I expect it will be another week or so until everything is completed. Things move slow when furnaces are low. However, I am going to learn all I can while I am at the plant, so if anything happens, I might try and get my foot in somewhere else. In regards to my studies, I fear I'm slipping. I can't seem to get the time for field work, and one really needs the practical work or the studies get stale. However, I added another rock to my collection. A piece of pale green feldspar. Crystal clear and not a flaw or mark in it. The war news isn't so nice to hear, is it? But I think that the British are really becoming annoyed. It's about time they started, as Germany is now going full capacity, I think. At least that's the way an old Englishman explained it today. He also said even if Italy does join with Germany now, they will be with us in the end, as they always stay on the winning side. He ended with, I never knew of a wop that could take a kicking, and there are a few around here I would like to slap around. I think he hit the nail on the head. I never had much use or respect for that blood that takes in a multitude. Well dear, spring is really here, grass green, leaves about full grown on the low bushes, makes me long for good old Muskoka. I guess I always will. I'll just have to take it out in longing for a while at least. I would give a lot to spend a couple of weeks there with you. It would be about as perfect as possible, don't you think? Well darling, this is a pretty long letter from yours truly, isn't it? So maybe I had better quit before I go to the extremes. Write soon, that's a dear. As ever. Roger XXXX.